Hello, welcome back. Today I want to do something a little bit different. I don't want to talk about the books that I love and the books that I've been reading, but rather I want to see the books that you love and the books you've been reading. So what I wanted to do for today was look into the 2024 Choice Award winners and look into the books that have been chosen as winners of Best in a specific category, and then try to read those books and see whether those books align with what I would consider to be a good book in that category. Now, I'm not going to read the books from every single category because that would take me way too long and I don't have that time. But I'm going to choose a couple of categories, maybe 2 books, and then I'm going to read them and share my thoughts about those books with you. This is the Goodreads Choice Awards 2024, so let's see what books they have. I already see here there's a couple of books that are part of a series, so I won't be able to do those, like Ruthless Vows and House of Flame and Shadow. I think it's also part of a series. Somewhere Beyond the Sea, I believe it's part of a series as well. So there's a couple books here that I just won't be able to pick because I haven't read the first book in the series. In the romance category, we have Emily Henry, Funny Story. I heard about Emily Henry. I'm not a huge romance reader, but everyone loves Emily Henry. So I think this video could be a great opportunity for me to actually read one of her works and see why everyone loves her so much. The next one that I've been seeing do the rounds a lot on YouTube and I've been a little bit interested in is the fiction category. We have The Wedding People by Alison Espach. So I think I might give this a go. It seems a little bit shorter than the other books like Kristen Hanna. I really want to read Kristen Hanna, but I heard her books are really long. I might just go for a shorter one this time around. I also really want to read The Ministry of Time. A lot of people talk about it. Same with Stephen King. I want to get into Stephen King, but both of these books I kind of want to give them their own time. I don't want to read them quickly just to film this video. I want to sit with them and have some time to actually delve into these books. So I think I'm not going to read them for this video. Funny Story has also been nominated for the audiobook, so killing 2 birds with 1 stone, amazing. Okay, so those are the 2 books that I'm going to read. Emily Henry, Funny Story for the romance and the audiobook category, and then The Wedding People by Alison Espach in the fiction category. And once I read them, I'll get back to you. Okay, let's talk about Funny Story by Emily Henry. And I'm coming at you from in front of my fireplace because today it's -20 outside. I just got back from walking the dogs and it's crazy. -20, jail. So to give you a bit of a synopsis of the story, we are following Daphne, who just recently broke up with her fiance, and the reason for the breakup was that her fiance decided he wants to get together with his best friend. But it's even a little bit more traumatic because it's not just about the breakup, but also Daphne's entire life was revolving around her fiance's friend group. They lived together in his house, and so she kind of lost everything in the process. She lost her friends, she lost her home. The only thing she has left is her job. What she decides to do is to move in with the ex-boyfriend of the girl who got with her fiance. They start living together and they decide that to get back at their respective exes, they should start fake dating so that they kind of get them jealous. Starting from there, we start to see their relationship develop, and not just that, but we also see kind of a side plot of Daphne trying to become her own person again. I'm going to talk a little bit about my thoughts on the book, and I'm going to start with the positives and then I'm going to go into the negatives. The positive aspects of this book, things that I really liked, were First of all, the readability of the book. It's a book that is very easily read. You go through it very quickly. The structure of the chapters is easily distributed, and it makes it very easy for you to get through the book. And there's quite a bit of dialogue as well, which makes it go through it even faster. I also really like the relationships in this book. There's a wide cast of characters, so it's not just the two people involved in a relationship, but the cast of characters, it's quite large, so that's really fun. And I also really enjoyed the different settings. So I feel like this book, one of its assets is that it has a lot of diversity in terms of characters, in terms of settings. I feel like some romance books sometimes can be quite claustrophobic in the sense that it's just the main characters in similar settings all the time. But what I enjoyed about this one is that, you know, we had different settings. We went to the beach, we went to the library, we went to visit farms a little bit outside the city. So it was really nice to see the characters evolve and exist in these different spaces, and I really enjoyed how Emily Henry described all of these places as well. So to get into the aspects which I didn't enjoy as much about this book, first of all, I felt like this book tried to be a little too profound, tried to be a little bit more than what it is. Every single time that a character tried to work towards developing their relationship, a issue related to family issues came in the way of them making the relationship work. There's a specific scene in which they were literally making out and they just stop and they start discussing family issues, and I'm like, I just felt like that was very forced, very much put in there to add to the fact that the story itself is very profound, which I found was a bit weird. The main obstacle in this relationship was family issues that these characters had. You know, it's a relatable thing. It's possible that someone's family issues intervenes with their love life, but the way that it was done in this book, I just felt like it was forced. I felt like it was unnecessary. I didn't get it. I just didn't get it. I'm like, that's not, like, what are you talking about? Just go back to kissing. I don't get it. Another thing that I really disliked was, and I find this is not just in this book, this is like applicable to most romance books that I read. To me, the main female character is always a caricature of every possible average woman that could read the book. And what I mean by that, I feel like the main character is, you know, not as pretty as the other girl that her ex is dating, not as stylish, not as fashionable. She's worth it. You just need to get to know her. I feel like this is a trope in most romance books where it's a very intentional characterization of the character that the author decides just to make it so that it's extremely relatable to any person, every girl that will read this book, which to me is a bit of a marketing tactic and it just pisses me off. It kind of ironically does the opposite of making the character its own unique thing. It just makes it very average and nothing special about her. There's nothing about the character that is unique to her and that could not be applied to any girl that reads this book. So those are my thoughts a little bit more in detail, and stay tuned for my overall impressions to see if I think this book was a good book at the end of the video. I just finished reading The Wedding People this morning, and oh my god, this book was amazing. How do I even start? You know how sometimes there's books that kind of heal your inner child a little bit? I feel like this book healed my inner adult. This book is essentially a love letter to life, a love letter to adulthood, a love letter to motherhood. It was told so beautifully. The writing was impeccable. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll just tell you a little bit about what the book is about first. The book follows Phoebe. Phoebe is in her 40s. She's this middle-aged woman. She's a professor who is depressed. She's been depressed for a while and she doesn't even know exactly where this depression started. It's just been tiny little things added up that led to her feeling meaningless, feeling like she doesn't want to live anymore, like she doesn't see the purpose in life. She has been trying for a while to have a baby with her husband, but it seems like at this point there's just no possibility of that. Recently, she just found out that her husband has been cheating on her with one of his colleagues. So she's just kind of living in this state of being alive but not really living life. One morning she decides she's had enough and she decides she no longer wants to live. So she's basically going to take her life. She decides that in order to do that, she wants to kind of not live by anybody else's rules. In her marriage, she almost always felt very constrained in the sense that whenever she wanted to do something grand, like book a hotel room of $800 a night, her husband would always be like, no, that's crazy, let's go to a lower end hotel room. And so when she decides how she's going to take her life, she decides that she's gonna go to that $800 a night hotel room and she's gonna do it there. But when she gets there, she realizes that the hotel is kind of booked for the whole week for a wedding. Accidentally managed to slip in. She's the only person in the hotel who is not part of the wedding. And the bride starts to talk to her, ask her, what are you doing here? Who are you? And she tells the bride, I'm here to kill myself. And the bride has a weird reaction. Instead of being like, oh my gosh, what happened? She's like, no, you're gonna ruin my wedding. Do it after the wedding, do it somewhere else. And that's kind of how the story starts. And throughout the book, we follow the days leading up to the wedding and see the relationship with Phoebe and the bride, and then Phoebe getting to know the rest of the people in the wedding, including the groom's best man, all the bridesmaids, the mom of the bride, and we kind of see the wedding scene from the observer, kind of a little bit outside of the wedding, observing the people in the wedding. And on the surface, the book seems very simplistic, but the more you delve into the book, it's so beautiful. It unveils this kind of Pandora box of discussions about life, about what it means to be alive. And so the entire book is really about her realizing how she could be her own person again, and that she doesn't owe anything to anybody. She doesn't owe anything to her husband or ex-husband. I'll read you a little quote from the book where this is kind of like encapsulated. She doesn't have to be beautiful in this moment. She doesn't have to be anything ever. Her husband is not watching. Her father is not watching. Nobody was ever really watching except Phoebe. Phoebe was the only person waiting in the dark to condemn herself for every single thing when the day was over. What's really great about this book is that the author brings in a lot of literary references when she talks about, taking one's life away. And so she kind of recalls to the reader a lot of literary references where that happens. She talks about Virginia Woolf's life, who, if you didn't know, committed suicide. She trapped her ankles, I think, with rocks, and then she walked into a lake, and that's how she drowned. She talks about Mrs. Dalloway, which is one of the most significant works of Virginia Woolf's, where also happens in that book. She also talks about Edith Wharton, and reading this book kind of felt like going on a little treasure hunt of literary information, because Phoebe herself is a professor of English, and so she is very attuned to analyzing life through the lens of literature and through the lens of other authors and other characters from books that she's read. But in a sense that also took away from her ability to live life. She always kind of maybe lived a little bit too much through books rather than taking upon herself to make decisions in her life that would lead her to live the life that she wanted. And I'm gonna read another quote here. This is why she has always preferred books, because to be alive, it's much harder. To be alive, she must leave this hotel despite the uncertainty of everything. Walk down the hallway of the mansion come winter, not knowing what will become of her, which is a thing that does scare her. But she also feels a thrill imagining the candles she'll light at night. This book just encapsulates so many different discussions about really wonderful things. She talks about aging, what it means to age with someone or without someone. Love, obviously it's a big theme in this book. Changing and reinventing yourself, learning to love yourself again, learning to be okay with your own decisions. There's also discussions about motherhood. I really like how the author kind of wove the theme of motherhood in this book, because obviously the book starts off with us knowing that Phoebe is not able to conceive, and this is a huge reason as to why she's feeling so depressed. not the only reason, but one of them. But then as the book progresses, we just kind of see this huge theme of what it means to be a mother. There's beautiful scenes that are with the mother of the bride. The bride and the mother don't have a really good relationship, and we can see from the perspective of Phoebe, kind of both of their perspectives. We can see the bride who's unhappy with her mom, who thinks her mom always tried to steal the spotlight, and then we see the mom who feels alone. There's also the figure of the dead mother, so the mother that is no longer here. So the groom was married before, and his wife died, and then they had a kid. So you could see this child with whom Phoebe gets to be acquainted, how difficult it is for her to not have her mother around, and what it means for her to live without the mother, how she reinterpreted her own existence and her own identity without the mom. And there's a symbolic kind of discussion of that in her name, because she decided to no longer use her real name, which is Melanie. She decides to use the name that her mom gave to her when she was like 3 years old. She requests that everybody calls her by that specific nickname because that's how her mom used to call her when she was so little. I just love how the author really kind of wove these bigger themes into different perspectives and different lives of the people in the book. I just realized I didn't really say anything negative about this book. When I did a review about Funny People, I kind of went into positives and negatives, but for this one, honestly, in my humble opinion, it was a perfect book. So now I'm going to do a little bit of a wrap up of the video and tell you my final thoughts on both of these books. Both of these books very ironically dealt with very similar themes. Both of them were about weddings or failed weddings. Both of these books were kind of about female protagonists that were trying to find themselves again when they got out of a relationship, but I feel like they did it very differently, and I think that's also a reflection obviously of the genres of the books. So romance is a little bit more fluffy, a little bit more lightweight, whereas literary fiction was definitely a more heavier book. So I'll give you kind of my star ratings of these books. For Funny People, I think it was a fun little book to read as a palate cleanser. It's not a book that I would recommend to anybody. It's not a book that I personally enjoyed reading. That's maybe has something more to do with the fact that romance is not a genre that I naturally gravitate towards. It's not a genre that excites me, and so for this reason I think I would rate it something like a 3 out of 5 stars. It's definitely not a book that I would consider to be a good book that should be the winner of the romance genre, but then again, I don't read enough romance for me to be able to say, oh yeah, this is actually the best that has been published in that year. The characters were not really vivid in my memory, in my mind. I didn't really live the story with them. On the other side of the spectrum, The Wedding People was an exceptional work of art, 5 stars for sure. I absolutely understand why people love this book so much and why it was the winner for the Choice Awards last year. It was just amazing. It was an amazing study of grief, of love, of life itself. It was wonderful. I thought it was really well done. I loved all the little nuggets of literary references that the author put in there. I loved how she took big themes, but she explored them so well and through so many different perspectives. It wasn't just this one experience of this one person, but we have the theme of love and we see it through the eyes of so many different people, and then we have the theme of motherhood and we see it through the eyes of so many different people, and the same with other themes in the book. It was a wonderful book. Highly recommend. I really enjoyed reading other books that are absolutely outside of my comfort zone this week. I feel like I would have not picked up these books by myself if it wasn't for me doing this video, but I'm glad I did because it got me a little bit outside of my comfort zone, and I got to read a little bit more in other types of books that I'm not usually delving into. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching.